Cyrodiil is the heart of Tamriel, the seat of the Imperial throne, and the beloved setting of the Elder Scrolls IV: Oblivion. It was also beautifully recreated for the Elder Scrolls Online. It's the biggest zone in that game by far, with more quests, landmarks, and more sky shards than any other. It is vast, and there's always something to do. But it's also the most underrated part of ESO because it's the home of the game's open-world PvP. Many players may not realize this, but ESO's unique brand of open-world PvP might be its greatest achievement. Problem is, it's also quite intimidating and a bit complicated, so a lot of players opt out and miss out on one of the best things in this game. But thanks to the power of YouTube, that can change. Hiya, this is Maya, you're watching Ninja Pulls, and jokes aside, I'm not going to teach you how to PvP. I'm not even that good at it, to be honest. But I am going to break down this massive system, make it easier to understand, and encourage you to jump in, especially during Whitestrake's Mayhem, the big PvP event which pops up twice a year. But actually, everything we're about to cover is relevant all year round. Getting in is easy. Once you hit level 10, you'll receive a mail entitled Cyrodiil awaits, meaning access granted. Open the Alliance War menu, the default key is L, and choose a campaign. Doesn't matter which, the below level 50 campaign may be more beginner friendly, but probably also quieter. Just read the description and take your pick, or go where your buddies are going. Mouse over it and press E. Once you have committed to a particular campaign, you can press R to make it your home campaign. You don't have to do this, but having a home campaign is the only way to get on the leaderboards and to be eligible for the end of campaign rewards, which are significant. 50 transmutes? Yes please! Once your queue pops, accept it and you'll port in. If it's your first time in Cyrodiil, talk to an NPC with this icon to start the tutorial. Take care not to skip it. It only takes a few minutes and drops a lot of Alliance points. These are a cross between XP and currency, which you can spend on siege equipment, gear, potions, repair kits, and loads of other stuff. Doing the tutorial gets you 9k, which isn't a bad start, plus 3 skill points, and rank 3 in both Alliance War skill lines. That lets you instantly unlock Vigor, a great heal, and the continuous attack passive for 30% faster mount speed. Make sure you don't skip the siege part of the tutorial either, or you won't get the full amount of AP. And if you do it during the Mayhem event, you should get double. Another good thing to do is press C to see your active effects and look at Battle Spirit. This is just a balancing bonus which is permanently active whenever you're in Cyrodiil. You don't have to memorize it or anything, I'm just showing you where it is because it's important and it's good to remind yourself what it does. Okay, so the map of Cyro is pretty straightforward. Each alliance has 2 border keeps, blue northwest, red northeast, and yellow south. This will be your base. The only way shrines in Cyrodiil are here, which you can use to port out. You can also pick up repeatable missions here, find crafting stations, bankers, all the usual vendors including special PvP merchants, armory stations, and soon a scribing altar as well. If you can't find what you need, use the Transitus Shrine to port to your other border keep and check there. Border keeps are safe zones that cannot be captured and you cannot be attacked here. All the other keeps can change hands and you can only teleport between keeps that are owned by your alliance and that are connected to one another. The rest of the time you're going to have to ride or use a keep recall stone. So what's the objective? The 2 obvious and official goals are to help your alliance win the campaign or to crown a new emperor. There is some overlap between these 2, but they're not the same thing. To win the current campaign, your alliance must capture keeps, resources, outposts, and Elder Scrolls. Turns out these are important. The scoreboard ticks up every hour, and the more assets your alliance controls at that time, the more points they are awarded. There are some quirks to this system. For one thing, not everything is equal. Elder Scrolls and home keeps, those nearest to your base, are worth a lot more. And it's easy to see that capturing a ton of keeps during peak time, when they'll soon be retaken, is not going to earn as much score as capping them all just after everyone's gone to bed, so that the score timer is more likely to refresh a bunch of times before they get retaken. So you can game the system a bit, but not that many people care enough to do this. Basically, you capture stuff and your alliance earns points. Perhaps counterintuitively, earning alliance points does nothing in and of itself to advance your alliance's position in the campaign. Alliance points are just for you, but used as a currency to advance the alliance war skill lines on that character and increase their rank in the alliance war generally. What about Emperor? Well, that's much simpler. Your alliance just needs to hold all 6 of the central keeps around the Imperial City. When that happens, the highest ranked player with the most AP in that campaign on your alliance becomes Emperor, however briefly. Obviously, if you want that player to be you, it's a lot more work. But crowning a new Emperor isn't really that complicated or difficult. You just need some momentum. Hanging onto it is another matter. Those are the 2 obvious and official objectives put in front of us by the devs. But I think most of the time, players are more interested in earning alliance points, for example, 25k to become eligible for Tier 1 end of campaign rewards. Or they might want to complete certain quests, do some fishing, or just have some fun. Next, I want to talk about siege weapons and resources, since many players seem to be slightly unclear on those. The basics are obvious. You break into a keep or outpost and occupy both flags inside it until it flips to your alliance. In fact, you really don't need to know any more than that. But there is a lot more going on which you can use to your advantage, especially if you're coordinating with your group. First, the 4 basic types of siege weapon. Battering rams are for gates and doors, used for attack. Ballistas are good all-rounders, against players, structures, and other siege weapons. Catapults are very strong against players, used mostly for defense. Trebuchets are great against structures, walls, gates, and doors, and are also used mostly for attack. By the way, you get 2 rams and trebuchets for free at level 36 inside a Cyrodiil assault crate. Then at level 44 you get a defense crate containing repair kits and 2 ballistas. You can buy all of them from siege merchants in your border keeps or from quartermasters at friendly keeps and resources. There's also flaming oil for defending from an elevated spot, also bought from vendors. And you can dig up lancers via the antiquity system. These are very bursty, but annoying to replace should they be destroyed. All of these weapons can be depleted, destroyed by other siege, or an enemy player can just walk up and set them on fire. You can counter there with repair kits, or just bring some backups. Lastly, forward camps create a resurrect point for nearby allies. Place them in a safe spot close to where you are fighting so you and your buddies can respawn there. Without a camp, you'll have to resurrect in one of your keeps, which might be miles away, or wait for an ally to res you. You don't have to worry too much about the different siege damage types, not at first anyway. Special versions like the Coldstone Trebuchet and Meadbag Catapult can be used tactically to great effect, but most of the time you'll probably be sieging with a ram and a bunch of basic ballistas arrayed around it. This is because the ram deals more damage if players stack on it, and ballistas can be placed close enough to the ram that you can operate both at the same time. If the defense is really fierce at the gate, you may want to back off and use trebuchets and other siege from a distance. Or you may decide to forget the gate entirely and smash through the keep wall. Cyrodiil is basically a massive free-for-all. There are no rules, which is what makes it intimidating but also fantastic and addictive. All siege weapons and repair kits are quick slot items like potions, so make sure your quick slot loadout is done before you head into battle. Once you're in combat, you can't change it, so slot the stuff you need beforehand. And keep in mind that almost all of them are alliance restricted, so make sure you bring the right ones. The other wildcard I should mention here is Volendrung, a unique item that spawns randomly and which any player can wield. It replaces all your active abilities with new, supercharged ones, increases your max stats, and heals you for massive amounts whenever you kill someone. It's not a siege weapon, but is often used to smash through keep walls very quickly. No time for a tutorial here, but you can find the Daedric Prince Sheogorath hanging around your border keeps and talk to him to start the Volendrung tutorial. Beyond that, you'll just have to hunt it down and try it yourself. Moving on. Resources. Every keep has 3 resources nearby: a farm, a mine, and a lumber mill. Again, capturing any of these will earn you AP, while controlling them will increase your alliance's score in the campaign. And there are other reasons to capture them. Controlling a keep and its associated resources will make it stronger, and the longer you control a resource, the more bonuses you unlock. Level 1 bonuses unlock 5 minutes after the resource is taken, and the guards from your alliance spawn at the flag. Hold it for another 5 minutes, and the level 2 bonuses also unlock. Obviously, this only works if you control the keep as well. 5 minutes after capturing a farm, the NPC guards in the keep gain more health, deal more damage, take less damage, and your mages and archers gain more range. With 5 minutes more, they all gain more powerful versions of their abilities. This is why sometimes keep guards feel super tanky compared to other times. At level 1, the mine upgrades your walls and the armor on your guards. At level 2, your keep walls will slowly heal automatically and extra vantage points will appear at the corners. If you've ever been riding along and got startled by one of these sections popping up under your feet, now you know why. Finally, the lumber mill at level 1 gives doors more health, raises the siege weapon cap and upgrades your archer's attacks. Level 2 gives you another cap increase and your doors will slowly heal automatically. No need to remember all this stuff. The point is that if you've taken a keep but not the resources, it might be worth doing that before moving on, just to make it that much harder for the other alliance to retake the keep 10 minutes later. However, that doesn't mean that taking resources before sieging a keep will necessarily weaken it. Keep in mind that it takes 10 minutes for all the bonuses to wear off, so unless you're planning a very long siege, you probably won't benefit from it. And flipping resources is a great way to signal to the enemy, hey, we're here and we're about to attack you in this location. The reason you might see groups taking resources first is either to stop enemy players porting to the keep in time to defend it. Once a keep loses all 3 resources, the Transitor's Shrine will be disabled. Or they're just grabbing one resource to trigger the continuous attack passive we talked about earlier, which boosts your damage and resource recovery for 10 minutes after taking a keep or resource. That's an overview of how siege weapons and resources can be used to your advantage. Although, if you're playing during White Strake's mayhem, you probably won't see any of this, but just a wild scrum of players moving like locusts from one objective to another. Speaking of which, we should talk quickly about performance in Cyrodiil. It's one of the main criticisms players have, and if you're used to questing and fairly low-pressure gameplay where everything is super smooth, you might be surprised at first by some of the quirks of playing in Cyrodiil when it's crowded, especially during a big event. The devs definitely know about it. They were going to implement multi-threaded server architecture last year, but that was put on hold. Anyway, I think most PvPers just accept by now that they will lag out every now and then, especially during big events where there might be 100 players all fighting in one place. Mileage may vary, you might not notice anything at all. I just wanted to mention that it can be an issue. Finally, I wanted to touch on the other content besides keeps and a couple of basic tips for designing your build. Like I said at the start, Cyrodiil is vast. Keeps may be the main thing on the map, but there are also capturable outposts, towns, bridges, and mile gates to break up the battlefield. Not to mention a huge number of delves, ruins, and other story locations that have nothing to do with PvP, but offer some questing and PvE content and help bring the zone to life. There is a lot more here than you might think, so once you're comfortable moving around the zone without fearing for your life, exploration is encouraged. And when you're done, how do you get out? We get this question a lot, so I'm gonna answer it here. The simplest way to get back to the PvE zones is to go back to your border keeps, your alliance base, and use the way shrines in the back of those areas. If you're nowhere near a Transitor's Shrine, you can instantly port to your border keeps by getting killed, either by enemy players, NPCs, local wildlife, or just by jumping off something very tall. The other way is to open up your alliance menu again and queue either for another Cyrodiil campaign or the Imperial City. Either way, you'll spawn at your alliance base and can use the way shrine or the exit from the sewers to get back into Tamriel proper. While we're on the subject, you should definitely check out the Imperial City as well. It's like Cyrodiil, open world, but much more condensed, with a mix of both PvP and PvE. It's one of my favorite places in ESO, although I'll admit it can be scary to go there, especially if you're not super confident with your build. The environment is awesome. The Elder Scrolls often does horror really, really well. And this is a great example. The city is crawling with Daedra, and going through the sewers by yourself is genuinely tense, never knowing when you might bump into an enemy player or a Zifkin elite guard. There's loads to do. Dailies with unique rewards, special gear vendors, cool collectibles, and of course, Telvar stones, a currency unique to the Imperial City. It drops from almost everything, and the more you have, the more you earn. But when you die in IC, you lose half the Telvar you have on your character, so it can be wise to make regular deposits in the bank. You can also get it by killing other players, but don't worry, your alliance points are always safe. And if you find yourself far from your base with a lot of Telvar, you can do the same trick again by queuing for Cyrodiil and hiding somewhere safe until the queue pops. Finally, although this obviously isn't a build video, I know it can be perplexing if you haven't geared yourself for PvP before. So I will offer some very, very basic tips which should apply to most players in most situations. 1. There are some great builds out there, but make sure they're up to date before you print all the gear. 2. Bring high health and high resistances. Most people would say close to 30k health and 23k resists at least. That's a sensible default. Of course, you can go lower if you want, but keep in mind that the first thing other players see is your health, and they will always attack you first if you look like a squishy target. 3. Run one offensive set and one defensive set. These definitions are a little vague, and of course there are other ways to do it, but it's a good place to start. You can also run the defensive set just on the back bar, creating room for more power on your front bar, but letting you swap to activate that defensive 5-piece when you suddenly need to give yourself the chance to retreat or recover. One very common example is Rallying Cry, Wretched Vitality, and Death Dealer's Fate, because it kinda works for every class. 4. Try to combine a soft heal that you can always keep running with a burst heal or a shield that you can spam to recover from big hits. Also, if you're in a group, try to stack some cross heals like Echoing Vigor. With multiple allies running these, they become very powerful. 5. Practice your damage combo. Whether you want to wear your enemies down slowly or stun them before bursting them down, or a mixture of both, you'll have a much better chance if your sequence of casts and timing of procs is fast and consistent. Keeping it simple can also help a lot. 6. Give yourself an escape if you can. It's nice to be able to walk away from a fight sometimes. Whether you use stealth, speed, temporal guard, or simply the ability to ignore the enemy's damage until they give up and go away, is better than getting stuck in an annoying fight with no way out. Of course, there are 1,000 ways to build for PvP, and a lot will depend on your playstyle. But none of the above advice is bad. If you want to test it, get a buddy who's good at PvP to duel you, or visit the new Cylon public dungeon in Westweald and see if you can solo that Minotaur group event boss in under 8 minutes. If you can do that, you probably have enough damage and survivability to get started, at least. If you plan to run around with a group, a tanky healer with lots of sustain is a pretty nice beginner setup, and you can keep others alive while they do the fighting. That's actually a very good idea if you're just starting out and are very uncertain. And you can join the Ninja Pulse Discord and ask some of our PvP specialists for advice. There is no one-size-fits-all build. Just find something you like, give it a go, and keep tweaking it until it works. Finally, be prepared to get killed. It is going to happen, and the secret to enjoying open world PvP is to just accept it and not let it bother you. If it keeps happening, then tweak your setup. And if you run into a player who's trolling you, sadly, there are some sad sacks out there. Remember that rule number 1 is not to feed them. They are a very small minority. I totally meant what I said at the start of the video. PvP in ESO is way better than most PvEers give it credit for, and that goes for the community as well as the zone. Hopefully this video has demystified some of the more obscure details about Cyrodiil and encouraged you to jump in. Big thanks to our wonderful supporters. We couldn't do this without you. If you enjoy the content and want to help us keep going, please subscribe here on YouTube, on Twitch, and come hang out with us on Discord. Thanks for watching!